Okay. Hey, everyone. I'm so glad to see you guys here. We are here with King Connor. Let me just mute. Oops. So, you know how we do it? We give 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. We
But
just give 5 minutes until the people start coming in. Okay. All right. And if you don't see me facing forward, it's because I have two screens and I'm looking to my right.
yeah, I
So
have a second screen too,
you have a
so
second
you'll
screen.
see. Yeah.
Okay. But just remember when you're talking, face the screen. All
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Okay. I was telling Connor that he has the African sign of royalty, the gap. Like you know.
I
So
was
the Afri-
born. Yeah, I was
yeah,
born with it.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was one of it. He has the African. I told him, I said, Connor, you have the African sign of nobility and royal blood. This gaps. I wonder where that came from.
You know,
Anyways,
I'll
oh
I'll Google it and see where it comes
yeah,
from.
let's see. Okay, so guys, we're here. So let's give it 5 minutes for everyone to come in. Okay, so be patient. 5 minutes. Let everyone come in. 5 minutes. Connor, let's see here. I'm gonna mute so I can type. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
You know what? I should do that too. Yeah, you're right. It says right here it comes from Zulu ancient Egyptian cultures and then eventually spread around Europe. So that's where it comes from. So originally came from Africa, then it started going into Asia, then it started going in Africa, then actually I'll talk about that in the history when they all mingling each other across the planet. But yeah, you're right. It comes from royal blood in Africa.
Okay, so what we're gonna do now, I know it's not like exactly 5 minutes, but we're gonna get started. First of all, everyone, thank you so much for coming. Let me just do a quick roll call. So Rachel, thank you. Ashanti, thank you. Bright Aura, E. Carter, welcome. And to all the other people who are here, including the feds, thank you for being here. And you can leave a comment if you'd like. FBI, CIA, Mossad, you know how we love you here, okay? NSA, CSS, and all the other intelligence agencies. I'm just joking. I'm joking. Okay. All right. So, Connor, how would you like me to address you? His Majesty?
Yeah, you can do that. I don't care what you do. To
Yeah?
be
Okay.
honest,
How
you could
about
do
King Connor?
that's even better.
Okay. So, King Connor, can I call you King Connor the Young?
That's fine.
King
That's fine.
Connor.
Yeah, you
Okay.
know what's interesting to
Yeah.
that? I became head of my family today on the 2nd of January, 2010.
And then you really? So
Mhm.
you assume the title in
Assume that yeah,
yeah,
I
it's
think
14
it's
years.
like titular king. Like, I think
Titular,
that's
yeah,
what it
you
is.
got the
Yeah.
title.
Yeah. I think
Okay,
that's what it is.
okay, so you got the title
But
10
not
years
how
ago.
not the authority really,
Yeah,
but
titular.
yeah.
Yeah, the title. Okay, so let's explain that. So Connor said 10 years ago on January 2nd, sorry, I talk with my hands. On January 2nd, he was given the title. So titular, the title, not power, but title. 10 years ago?
14 actually now.
14 years ago. 14 years ago. Okay, in 2010.
20 no. Yeah,
2010.
2010. Yes, yes.
Okay, so January 2nd, 2010. Okay, so Connor, let's start there. King Connor, sorry.
Yes.
Let's start there. And before we move on, King Connor the Young, I have a friend who I know you two are related, and I would love to do an interview with the both of you. How's that?
It will be great.
That's okay? Okay,
Yeah.
wonderful. So King Connor, introduce yourself. Tell us how you came to, getting how did you come about getting this title in 2010? What does it mean? What does it mean for the planet? And what is your mission? Go ahead, Connor.
So that's actually a great question because I actually talk about it in my YouTube. We'll just talk about that later on. I'll supply everything later on. But anyway, so I was raised into a family that had all kinds of royal connections, and I'll explain more about that later on in the video. The reason why I had the title titular king of the United Kingdom is because my family is actually the true royal family of Great Britain. And I know certain bad things happened in the British Empire, and I like to apologize for that because I would never ever do anything. I love people. I care for them deeply, as like a father would to their own children. I love all my people equally as they were my own. Plus, I don't have any children yet. So anyway, so like so when I was born, my father was the titular king then. My grandfather actually abdicated his titles. So like, he was starting to like feel, I don't want to do this anymore. So I'll just give up the throne. So he passed it on to my father. And when the interesting story, when I was pregnant, they were actually being crowned at a location that my family used to own. So Westminster Abbey, they were crowned at Westminster Abbey. Totally secretive because we're protected by a secret society. I don't want to mention their name because they have been protecting me for years. So so because we she my mother was pregnant at the time with me. So anyway, she when my birthday, April 16th, 2004, I was created Prince of Wales, Earl Chester, Duke of Cornwall, Duke of Rossi, titular though, not actual. So so anyway, my elder half sister was no longer the heiress presumptive, but I became the heir apparent because it's a male preference primogeniture in my family. Sorry, sis. But anyway, then my father did a surprise abdication when I was only 5 years old. Um, and So on the 2nd of January of this today, in 2010, I ascended the throne at age 5. I think I am the second youngest person ever to inherit the throne of England. If it happened in actuality, then I would. So but anyway, and now I'm 19, almost to be 20. So what's interesting, I changed the primogeniture rules so it could be more fairness in my family. So because I hate, you know, I like everything to have their fair share, equal. And so anyway, I changed a few harsh measures. So now they're living happy lives. What's really disappointing is that we actually have a Prince Andrew in the family. My uncle Andy, he's the Duke of York, and he had 3 marriages. He divorced him, and now he's currently married to the one I really don't like, and she even looks like a witch. So, and but it's a good family, and I'm very appreciative that I had a good family to raise me well and
Yeah.
to learn my history. So yeah,
Okay, that's beautiful. I think tonight would be a fascinating conversation because many of my listeners, they are from Africa, they're from America, they're from the Caribbean, they're from Europe, they're from colonies. And when I say colonies, I don't just mean like black colonies. I mean like, like Australia today is still under the crown. So
yeah,
this
yeah,
would yeah, so this would be refreshing speaking with you, right?
right,
The heir of that bloodline, and you are totally. different from the ones with the power. So, what would you, how do you classify titular versus those who actually have the power to execute
So
decrees?
there's a Latin term for the ones who actually have power. It's called de facto. DEFACTO, de facto.
De facto.
And so like King Edward V, for example, he when during his minority before he was usurped by his uncle Richard, he was held the title de jure. So the difference between de jure and a de facto in power, de jure means that they're in power, but they're in their minority. And de facto means they're actually held in power. So and also since when King Richard decreed that the marriage between his brother Elizabeth Woodville and King Edward IV invalid, which the princes became bastards illegitimate to the throne. So that's when I call King Richard the usurper. But however, his reign was marked by pretty good success. But another interesting topic is that when his actually King Henry VII is actually the grandson of King Henry V. In actuality, we're not being told what we're being told, what they have been researching. Genetically, King Henry VII is actually descended from King Henry V. And Edmund Tudor is not a Tudor, he's a Plantagenet. So Edmund Plantagenet, and he married of course, a close cousin, Margaret Beaufort. Oh, she was corrupt to the core. She was so evil. If I actually went back in time and see her face, she was responsible for the high taxation under her son's reign. She was the main culprit. Almost 250 people were executed just to cover up her own evil deeds. 250 people. I feel bad for those people. And you know what? The good thing
Mhm.
is, when she died, Henry VIII took power and undid all her bad deeds.
Let's draw that out a little bit. So just relax, relax. The people, they love you. They're learning about history. Okay, so don't worry. Just relax. Okay, so you mentioned Plantagenets, okay, versus the Tudors. Aren't the Plantagenets the real? Well, let's scratch that. Allegedly, shouldn't they be the ones on the throne now as opposed to the descendant of
Well,
Catherine of Mecklenburg out
well,
of
here's
Germany?
the thing.
Mm,
So
mhm.
my through my paternal great grandmother, she descends from George, Duke of Clarence. But those rumors of George started the rumor that he was married to another woman. That really wasn't true. But if it did happen, that the succession will be to George, Duke of Clarence descendants. And I'm cousin with the current head of that Plantagenet. But however, that's totally different because the Tudors are actually Plantagenet descendants. Just different name, but they actually are Plantagenets. When so Henry VII wanted to marry the York side, and let me tell you about the York side real quick, is that they are actually should have been monarchs of England, not the Lancastrians. So when King Edward III died, the throne passed to his grandson, Richard II. Now, he actually did have a child with Anna Bohemia. They will say he didn't. He actually did, a son. So if they followed that, my great grandmother would have been heiress to that line, but no. Let's just move on from that. So Edward when Richard II was abdicated, aka deposed, the succession would have passed to the Yorks, not to the Plantagenets. So Henry IV usurped the throne and created the House of Lancaster. But actually, you should go to the Yorks. So there was a lady called Philippa Plantagenet. She was a descendant of Lionel of Antwerp. He was the second son of King Edward III, but he died. So they had a problem of women ascending to the throne then before Queen Mary I. But so they would have passed the succession to her son, Edmund Mortimer. So, but that succession passed to his sister's line. And Joseph Gregory Hallett, real quick, was is has no relation to me because I looked through his lineage line. Queen Victoria did not actually have a child or any children with George of the Fifth of Hanover or George Duke of Cambridge. There's no children. She only had children with Prince Albert. So Joseph Gregory Hallett is claims are incorrect and false. So he's nothing. He's just a person out there just to, come back out here. Hey, I'm this. Oh, that's nice. But no, he's really nothing. But going back to the Yorks. So anyway, line of Antwerp's lineage is supposed to be the main cause during Richard II's succession. So there was a guy named Richard, Duke of York, third Duke of York. So he was the heiress to that line. But what's interesting though is that descends from two sons of Edward III, Edmund, Duke of York, and Lionel of Antwerp. So the Yorks had more legitimacy. So Richard, Duke of York, he would actually be King Richard III. His son will be King Richard IV, and his eldest son will be King Edward IV. So, anyways, in the succession will go to the Tudors too. So if they followed the Yorks, they will go to the Tudors, but Henry VII will be king.
Okay, so let's start off, let's backtrack a little bit. What is the history of these royal bloodlines? Where do
Uh,
you think these royal bloodlines originated? So before
so
we get into who's rightfully heir and who's not and titles and where does this come from? Why do we need it? Ah,
so this started in ancient Sumeria. So the idea of monarchy started in ancient Sumeria. So the originals, the gods, decided to have, okay, let's have our representatives, our direct descendants rule. Because so they created the first dynasty kings. So their descendants are the first dynasty kings and queens. So Egypt, Mesopotamia, China, Japan, all those things. So they're all related. And the reason why is that because the monarchy is a calling from God or gods back in those days. And also they're the descendants, they're among the gods. So it's a way just to keep the population intact so it won't, fall apart. So if when they have a constitutional monarchy, they will still have that divine right of kings and they will still have a parliamentary function. But here's the reason why I support a monarchy, particularly in Denmark. I'm a big fan of Queen Margrethe II. I absolutely love her. Not just she's just my birthday twin, but I love what she does. Queen Margrethe II goes to the absolute monarchy range in Denmark. So the monarchy is very important in Europe and also Japan as well, is because the monarch carries out specific functions as head of state and ceremonially. So not that just that their monarchy is important and that should not be abolished, is because the monarchy has a special role, a special power. Actually, I should tell you about this. They have the power to encourage, to warn government ministers and the government by the day in case if they overstep the mark. So they
so
will,
the role of the monarchs in Europe is a check and balance
yes, exactly.
because they're
So
not under a republic,
yeah,
right? So
so
constitutional monarchy acts similar as a republic in that there's checks and balances.
yes, exactly. So where I was getting to is that the monarchy has some power, but they are mainly a check and balance system for a prime minister, a president, parliament, and a judiciary system. So that's the main symbol of checks and balance in that country, in those countries, I should say. So, like Japan, for example, they have the Emperor Emeritus Akihito. He had a very symbolic power. He just only used that power just to like encourage ministers. Hey, this if this is what you're doing wrong, you need to look at it. Look above your station and care, and you represent the people that you got elected. Well, here's the thing though. Those the ministers that resign, I call them it's a confederacy of elected quitters, because they won't do their constitutional responsibilities. But anyway, going back to the history and all that. So the royal bloodline started with the gods, they started with the extraterrestrials, and they said, let's have our descendants rule and govern the earth for now, before republics became the rule. So anyway, when kings started marrying, so they gave, so what's interesting, the gods tell them this: I want you to preserve your lineage by interbreeding with your close relatives, and also royal families in different countries. So that's all started and continued until the 20th century. So it's very prevalent in those days. They called it, the Spanish actually labels it out pretty well: blue blood. So if you're a blue blood, you're a royal. If you're a red blood, you're a noble. And if you're a yellow blood, you're the sweating poor peasants in the fields. But anyway, what's the only in the rarest of terms when the royals interbreeded with the nobility. If Because the nobility, as soon as they marry, they'll be begging for titles, lands, and all that stuff, and a seat in government. So when the royals had the power, they had to keep their throne secure. So marrying close relatives, marrying other royal houses. So what's interesting about that is that the royal families of Asia, Japan in particular, Europe and Africa, they're all related to this day. They won't tell you they are, but they actually are. Because I did some because the DNA that I connected me to Emperor Akihito, Emperor Jimmu, the Chinese emperors, the Tibetan rulers, and Genghis Khan, and that sort of thing. So they're all connected, guys. They're all connected. The history behind royalty is that there's always a leader calling the shots to marry their own offspring with other royal houses. So that then that's the thing where dynasties develop. So let's take the Qin dynasty in China, for example. They were a royal house before Qin Shi Huangdi united China. The Qin dynasty was a nomadic royal state. So during the Zhou dynasty, they are the longest reigning dynasty in Chinese history. So in 771 BC, the king of Zhou was under attack by ancestors of the Huns and Mongols. And so they pillaged the city. So the Qin came up and had to their rescue. So the ancestors of the future emperor came to the king's rescue. And the kings since the Haija dynasty, the Shang and the Zhou, are the ancestors to the Chinese emperors, because they all descend from the Yellow Emperor. And therefore, so so after saving the Zhou king's life, the king of Zhou granted them a royal title. So the ancestor of Qin Shi Huangdi was granted the title of king of Qin. So that's when the state of Qin was born, and that's where it became the Qin dynasty. But here's the thing: the one thing I admire about Qin Shi Huangdi is that, how did the young king create the most powerful army in the world? They developed crossbows before Napoleon. They had uh, they had some of the most amazing techniques in warfare. And the Qin emperor was born in the state of Zhao. And so he took his revenge on that state. Those poor people. Their houses were burned. They were drawn apart by horses. It was just a nightmare during the wars of unification. And after he united all the warring states, he was crowned Qin Shou Wang Di. Let me tell you what that means. So, Xue means August, Wang means emperor, Di means God. Our first August divine emperor of China. And therefore, his reign will be marked with oh, turbulence and stuff. However, he developed a writing system that is still used today. He developed some cultural achievements. So above all the bad, there's some good achievements that he did. So they were told how. So the Qin was fiercely told, telling about how much to feed the horses, how much to feed the cattle, how to plow the fields, and even if they disobey, they would be risked drawing apart by horses. And since they developed on ancestor worship, it wouldn't be good advice for that particular ancestor to give for future generations because of that harsh law. So the Qin had a great legal system, and they created a religion called legalism based on the law of the land given by the monarch. But here's the thing, though. Qin Shi Huangdi was a supporter of legalism, but he was not like a devout person of it. He was a Taoist or a Taoist or whatever it is. He was a Taoist, and so he developed it. So like he was nearly killed by his mother when she had an affair named Lao Ai. So and he had an assassination attempt when he was 5 years old, and therefore he started getting this paranoia, this sickness. So around 212 BC, 211 BC. So at his birthday party, he starts to be suspicious of everyone looking at them, giving him the stink eye, and therefore his chancellor Lisa came up and said, "Your Majesty, what good do these people have? You're the one who created this empire. You're the one who created this land. You're the one who should push your own laws." So he grabbed a piece of a book. It said, Your Majesty, in order to move on to the future, we need to get rid of the past, eradicate it. So this led to the burning of the books, the most famous event in Chinese history. And therefore, everyone having culture, having history books or everything. This is why history is so important. You shouldn't destroy it because you'll learn from your mistakes. And anyone caught taking books for their own personal safety would be extremely punished. And so all the scholars had to come into this paranoid monarch, and he was like, "You all betrayed the empire. I despise you and everything." So the other half were sentenced to 20 years of hard labor on the Great Wall, while the other was given a sentence that was even more horrible.
So what
Four,
we see, sorry, sorry, go ahead.
so 460 scholars were buried alive that day. They were sentenced to the Kung, death by buried alive. And being at the Great Wall was also a death sentence itself.
Okay, so what we're seeing here is that this divine right of kings, which came from the gods, did two things, right? So we're seeing through this granting of kingship from these gods to humans, we see the acceleration of living, let me just put it this way, industrialization, right? The advancement of technology, industrialization, but we're also seeing to um, another parallel type of behavior that emerges: violence. So in humanity's past, we are seeing that there's progression with these rulers, progression in terms of development, agriculture, development, ingenuity, yada, yada, yada. And we're also seeing extreme violence. Do you think that extreme violence that we see today, that's prevalent on the earth today, do you think that was part of the genetic transfer from these gods to these to their children, their from the gods to the children, and then was inculcated into the DNA of you and I.
So the aggression, so the aggression started with the reptilian brain because the humans actually evolved from reptilians. So it has nothing to do from the gods. It has nothing to do with it. So your anger and your, you just want to like kill somebody, that comes from your reptilian brain. So that's the aggression brain. You have three types of brains that during your process as a human. You have the reptilian brain, which connects the spinal cord. You have the amphibian brain, and the rest of the brain is your primate brain. So for aggression and terror comes from the reptilian brain. So the violence comes from the reptilian brain. When the paranoia actually is like where you have such traumatic events building up in your head that leads your reptile brain to aggression. So that's when you become a tyrant. So with your paranoia behavior, you will start getting aggression more throughout your life, and it could even lead to a death, even to a very young death.
Let me
So
ask you a question. Let me ask you a quick question. So these gods that transferred the right, the divine right of kings, were they humans?
they were not human.
They were, what were they? They were reptilian.
They were reptilian, but another form of fate you should
Mhm.
understand is that some of them were not reptilian, some of them they were. So these gods were actually all powerful beings, all powerful. The ancestors of those gods were Yesh and Chaos, the Greek Chaos, one with
Mhm.
a K.
But can
But
we describe these gods? Because when you mention the three types of brains, okay, the forehind and midbrain, right? All of them have animal characteristics. Tho-
exactly,
Those animal characteristics didn't come from nowhere.
no, they
They came,
came. They
right.
came
Uh-huh.
from. So let me tell you this. So again, there's pre-Adam civilization. So God took the prime. So God took the primate advanced races. So he took the reptilian and he took the amphibian. He genetically created us, Homo sapiens sapiens, and so that's how humans had their DNA spiked up 7%. So it's like an upgrade. So he activated our neocortex, which gave us thought, writing and language and stuff, and also architecture and that stuff. So the original form of creation of humans is where, so they took human DNA for their descendants in order to bring forth the bloodline of the gods. So after they created humans, they decided, let's have the royal bloodline from us. So they created the kings. They're the same as the normal humans, genetically and physically and atomically. But the only difference is that they come from their bloodline, the bloodline of the gods. So the original form of kingship was called kingship, which developed from Cain. Cain had a more spiritual I can't say it, spirit than Abel. He had a more of a spirit. He was more of a divine person than a normal human. So the descendants of Cain were the kings. Also, the descendants of Seth were also the kings. So when they merged, so when those two bloodlines conjoined together, the divinity of kings started genetically was so prevalent in those two. So that's where you get the term. And even here's the Garden of Eden story under the Sumerians. So Adam and Eve have the son Cain. Cain was actually the son of Enki. Abel was Adam and Eve's biological son. So Enki had a son called Cain. They were Cain was adopted by Adam and Eve. So that's how so Enki decided to have the kingship line through Cain. That's the Sumerians. And also Noah is also prevalent in the Sumerian myth, but with a different name. So you have a Sumerian biblical Sumerian story coming into the Bible, but they word it differently. They're not telling you the full truth. So the Bible was edited, and plus they won't take out the word. They taken out just to fit their narrative. So they took out the original story from the Sumerians and they add it to fit their agenda. So anyway, so Cain was actually the son of Enki and Enki's consort, not Adam and Eve. So they took that out and put Adam and Eve as his parents, but in actuality, he had a more divinity than Abel.
This could explain why Cain, when Abel went and did the blood ritual in the opening in Genesis, why Cain was vehemently opposed to this and then shed his blood. Could that be why? Because I
Yes,
never agreed that Abel was right. I'm like, no one, um you cannot claim you come from the creator and shedding the blood of an animal as a sacrifice. You see what I'm saying? I've
yes.
always had a problem
So,
with that.
so
Go
the
ahead.
original story of Cain and Abel is that when Abel was doing a blood ritual, Cain was violently opposed, so he killed Abel. But the church wanted to view that Cain was a villain. So in actuality, Cain was the hero, Abel was the villain. So so the original form of kingship was kingship. So that's where the kings descend from Cain from the original. And then the gods fuse their blood with the lineage of Cain's descendants, the kings. So the first dynasty kings are descendants of Cain and descendants of the gods. So all the royals, this is so you know what, Rihanna, you and I are descendants from Cain and Enki in actuality, but not the biblical one. Here's why I discount the biblical one, because they totally took that part out. The true story of Cain and Abel, the original form of Cain and Abel story is that they're telling you that Cain was the true hero. Abel was the villain who was doing all these blood rituals, blood sacrifices. Cain was the one who wanted to put an end to that. So he killed his brother to stop that, or half adopted brother, just to stop that. But it was turned into like Cain is the villain, Abel's the hero. Really, what did Abel actually do? He did blood sacrifice.
Yeah, which is the other first person I actually met who understood clearly when you read the text is inverted because no one in the personally, this is my personal opinion. No offense to anyone who still practice animal sacrifice because there's many people who still practice animal sacrifice. However, in my personal opinion, nothing good shows up when you kill an animal to appease a god. And I just have a difficult time believing that the true creator who creates life shows up when you take life. That's just my opinion. Now, with that being said, I'm also I also have a problem with Cain killing Abel
Yeah, yeah.
because then
He shouldn't have killed Abel.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but he had a good
He should
stance
have
on.
isolated him.
Yeah, he should have said, "Hey, you shouldn't do that. That's God's creations, or
Right.
the God's creations. This is supposed to be for you to love and enjoy." But
Right.
he killed his brother just to stop what he was doing, take his life. I just think
Right.
that's wrong.
I think
So,
that's wrong too. I think it because to me, in the mind of an occultist, when you're going from sacrificing an animal, it looks like, oh, we shifted from sacrificing an animal to sacrificing a human. You see what I'm saying? So
yeah,
this
what do
is
you
why
think the Mayans did? So what? So
exactly.
originally, before the Mayans did normal people sacrifice, they actually sacrificed the kings. So what they would do is that the king will shed his blood, and also if a child was deformed, they will sacrifice him. or her. And so then they started taking royal captives, executing them for their blood because what they were descendants of the gods. Because they wanted the gods' approval to have a descendant. But let me tell you, Kukulkan Khan was never happy over these sacrifices because the jaguar gods bribed the humans, like they will block out the sun if they don't feed humans, if they don't feed on human blood.
You see,
So
mhm.
because the Jaguar gods hate Kukulkan, but Kukulkan was more powerful than them. So that's why the Jaguar gods made a pact with the humans, or else they will kill the humans themselves if they don't feed the royals or normal people's blood.
So you see where this progresses. And this is why I always said, and this is why I always try to educate people about the opening, the first religious practice that opens up in Genesis, why it's wrong and why we are where we are today. Why every year we go to war and millions get killed. Why? Because there's no respect for human blood. And that goes back to that animal sacrifice. And then Cain doing the wrong thing by shedding human blood. So the original sin for me is not Cain killing Abel, it's Abel killing an animal to a deity that he thought was God. Go for it.
Also the snake in the Garden of Eden when tempting Eve was not the original sin, because in the original story, God wanted them to have knowledge. So Satan, on behalf of God, was delivering knowledge. So what? So and then they turned into saying Satan disobeyed God's will by giving us knowledge, but that's actually not the true story. The true story is that God sent Hillel, which is Satan's true name, to Adam and Eve, saying, "Eat this thing, you will know the truth of our origins, you'll know the history, you'll start developing knowledge, it'll activate your neocortex." So this was planned all along. But the original sin started by when Abel killed an animal. That's when it started. So it's not the Adam and Eve story that caused a sin. It was actually Abel's sacrifice an animal.
The bloodshed.
Yeah.
And it's led to the Cain killing the animal for a god has led to millions, billions of animals being killed. And then Cain killing Abel has led to billions of humans being killed because none of them respected blood.
None of
Both
them.
of them. Both of them, right? So that's, I thought that that's a fascinating, fascinating conversation. So now, let me ask you a question. So let the gods come down, they mix, they have children. Who do they have children with? Do they have children with humans or do they have children among themselves?
Very few have children with humans. So, but the original children was with the gods, so with the female gods, so like their sibling gods. So that started going down the line. So Yesh and Chaos descendants mingled together, and that's produced the gods of every culture. So that's how I'm connected to them, and you and I. And then it starts going down the list, and then it gets so the original gods are called the pre-existential beings, the ones before the primordials. Then there are the primordials, first and second generation. Then they create the gods and goddesses. Their descendants are now the aeons. Their descendants became the deities, and their descendants became the demigods, and then their descendants become the kings. So that's the god bloodline, the god's bloodline. And so very, very few have children with humans. So, like Zeus, I descend from Helen of Troy, for example. So I descend. So Zeus had an obsession with human women. So Zeus went in to produce his royal blood to humans to mix it in. But he didn't just take ordinary humans. He took royal human women. So that's why he took those women, because they had royal blood, not just any blood, royal blood, God blood. So that's why he took them and had children with them.
Where at what level did these gods, because you listed four ranks, right?
Yeah.
The gods, the demiurge, the eons, etc., etc. Where in this timeline did they start mixing with humans? Because I'm trying to understand. Okay.
Different branches. So the gods had children with royal women. So just the gods, but their descendants, the demigods, not yet kings, started producing the kings because the gods or the primordials, the pre-existentials, told them their descendants to have royal offspring
Okay, do you
because
have
we're
this as a picture? I'm sorry, not to cut you off. Do you have this as a tree, a pyramid, a picture?
you know what I can do is make one and I can send it to you because I don't have one on me. But so here, you know what? I'll type it in.
Yeah, make one. Make that's okay. Next time, make one so we can see. Because I would
So,
like to see the tree of this. Not now. So
all
that
right.
way we can see the tree of this. Because I want to know when did they stop having, when did they stop copulating with each other and started copulating with us? Because I want to know. Because think about it. Imagine you're a god and you show up to my tribe and tell me I'm a god. I'm like, what's gonna give me the impetus to let you rule over me? You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Just give me 1 second because I'm just gonna write it down so you guys can see. So and then it goes to the aeons, the deities, and it goes to the demigods, and then it goes to the kings. Okay. Can you all see this? So this is where it started.
Okay, little to the right, little to the right. Right. Yeah, perfect. Go ahead.
So the pre-existential being started it. Then it went to the first and second generation primordials. Then it went to the gods and goddesses. So then they said, okay, let's create our descendants, the kings. So we're going to start with the aeons, the gods' descendants. Then aeons created the deities. The deities had demigod children. So like a mix between between God and humans, but not they didn't even mingle with humans yet. They just had human genetics and God genetics. But then the demigods were tasked to produce the first dynasty kings. So the first rulers of the planet are descendants of this bloodline. And here I'll put right now. So before I'm going to put it over here. So Yesh and Chaos. Yesh and Chaos are the ancestors of the pre-existential gods. And then it goes down the line. So
Okay.
that's how the royal
Mhm.
bloodline was started in history.
Wonderful question. So let's start with the pre-exist. How do you pronounce it?
Extenial. I know it's
Ex-
hard to pronounce.
The
Pre
pre-existing ones.
Yes, the
So the ones
pre-existing one.
before time.
Yes.
Okay. So time has something to do with this.
Yes.
Because if you're dealing with Yesh, I'm assuming Yesh is order and then chaos is chaos.
So let me tell you about the Greek version of chaos.
Okay.
Chaos was not an evil god.
Mhm.
Chaos, and Yash were self-created brothers.
Okay.
So the siblings of Yash were Yash,
Mhm.
Chaos, Death, and Ayan. Ayan was the original god of evil. His descendants, actually, he had no descendants. Sorry, backtrack there. Ayan had no descendants. So Death, Chaos, and Yash. Chaos and Yesh had consorts that they created. So it wasn't so it wasn't from so so no one created Yesh, chaos, death, and whomever, they were self-created. So like they were born out of nothing, that sort of thing. So Yesh and Chaos, this children were the primordials.
All right, so let's start. Let's start. That's perfect. So those who existed before time, the
Yes.
pre-existing ones, right? So we're looking at the time before time.
Yes.
Okay, so the time before time, there were only two.
Yes. They're the
They,
main ones who created the bloodline.
okay, so we're just talking specific bloodline,
Yes.
not the universe.
Now, okay, hold on. Yesh and Chaos ruled the universe before everything was even created. So there
Okay.
was a time in darkness where
Hmm.
there's no light.
Hmm.
So they were born out of nothing.
Hmm.
Then they were tasked. They were self-created with wives,
Hmm.
and their descendants were the primordials. And they said to their fathers, "Let's create and start creating." So they said, "Okay, let's start creating." And so our universe was the last ones ever to be created. So they created their universes. After this create the last universe, the primordials already had the gods and goddesses. So every religion focused on that particular bloodline. And then it goes. Then going back here, then it goes to the aeons. So before everything was created, so they created the first stars and the first galaxies. Nothing yet sentient was created yet. So the aeons were born, and then after that, a period of time of nothing. Then they created the deities. Then they created demigods. All right. So now the our solar system was created, and our planet was created. So then they create human. So after millions and millions of years, they finally create humans. So what do they do? Okay, let's have the demigods procreate. So that's where the kings come from. And they decided, let's have Cain help us here. Hey, Cain, can you help us with second? Sure. They tasked Cain for his descendants to carry on the royal lineage. So that's how it first started. So the first dynasty kings, it was all complete for the gods. Now they can, hear do their thing, hear prayers, give knowledge to humans. So they don't have to worry about the royal bloodline issue. So the very first thing that they tasked the first dynasty kings with is to unite their people together, start building architecture, temples, churches, that sort of thing, to honor them. And also, they started prayers, they started, building civilization as a whole. So the very first dynasty kings of the entire planet was founded because they had direct connections with the gods. The very first thing that they said, you descend from us, but you're also one of us because you had a divinity.
Yeah, this is beautiful. I mean, really, this makes more sense to me. I'm sorry, no offense, but this makes way more sense to me than the Bible. Way more sense. And the order, the power structure makes way more sense to me. Because when you look at some of these mountains and you look at some of these rocks, you say to yourself, there's something when you look at old buildings and the way the masonry is done. Okay, when you look at megaliths, like mega structures like the Great Walls of Benin, the Great Walls of China, you know there's a civilization and there is a what's the word I'm looking for? You know there's a largesse of the brain that present humans don't have, right? But
Right.
what I wanted you to do is I wanted you to stay for just 2 more minutes on the pre-existing ones.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. So here's my question to you. The pre-existing ones, were they all male? Were they
They
female? Where
they
did
were
they
both. So they were
ah
male and female. So they
in
were
one?
self-created in both.
Okay,
So
this is
so
what the
so
Africans say. Yeah.
so
The Zulu.
so they were self-created in both because they were the ones tasked of creating their lineage. They're very ones. So the RH negative group came from the extraterrestrials. They created the extraterrestrials besides us. So they sent the extraterrestrials to Earth to finish the work, to educate them. Then they started, mixing into the royal bloodlines. That was their mission. So, so today in human abduction accounts, there were the extraterrestrials were, taking our genetic form. So they were tasked of interbreeding with the royal families. So that's how the RH negative group, 15% of the planet, came from. That came from the extraterrestrials, not the gods.
Beautiful. I have a question here for you. Is there a God, the main one, over all of these before the pre-existing ones? Is there like the all, the source? Is there one that through whom everything comes from? That's a question from the
I
chat.
th- I think that they're since they're self-created, but however, there was a being called the One, the original. So they were the sons of the One, Yesh and Chaos. They were the sons of the One. The One was like after he had children, he was on a steady retirement, but he had no consort. The One had no consort or wife. He created them by hand through his DNA. He created them. So the One is self-created. Nothing came before the One, but the One and his children, Yesh and Chaos, their descendants came together and created the lineage today, as I was explaining earlier.
Oh,
So the pre-existing ones
mhm,
had consorts, but the One had no consort to begin with. So he pointed the finger and they were created.
mhm, mhm, mhm. Okay, so let me ask you because I want to know what was the mind, the mentality that gave birth to where we are today, right? Okay, so what existed in the one during the time when the one was alone? What existed? Was it nothingness?
Nothing.
Ah, that's what I
Nothing
figured.
existed before the One. He was all alone. He
No.
was the lonely boy in the streets.
And it was
So
male.
and it was male. He had no wife. He had
Okay,
no siblings. He was
mm,
just there all by himself. And
male.
then after a period of loneliness, he created his descendants, his children.
Okay,
And
and he created it by hand.
yeah, he created by hand using his DNA. So
Okay,
so with his power, his DNA and his blood came
mhm.
through, and a jet of light came out, and that's how they were created.
Ah, the
So
light sounds like sperm. Go ahead.
yes,
Mm,
and so they created
mm.
Yesh and Chaos.
Okay. So where did the one if there were no female archetypes when the one existed and the one's energy, or was the one physical? Was it just a state of male energy? Where did the one get the knowledge of a female archetype? Or that came later?
That actually, he actually, so the knowledge of female actually came through his finger. So he created the X chromosome, female, the Y chromosome for male. So he was the original source for every DNA based X being in any universe for an X and Y. So sorry, folks, there's not more than one genders that he created. He created X and Y, male and female. Sorry.
Oh, are you sure the one, could it be that the one was X and Y? Thus the name the one. I am not talking about transvestite. No, I am talking about everything in them. You see what I'm saying?
So here's I should have been more clear on this. So the one was not male and female conjoined. He was just male. But he created the the X chromosome out of just thin air. He just created it. He had no female, not anything. He was just complete male. He had no consort to impregnate. But he created out of thin air the consorts for his children. So the consort were also his children because he created them. So that's when the X and Y started continuing down the line. So he wasn't just the one with male and female. He was complete male. So he started the X chromosome out of thin air.
You see,
Since he
that's where I'm having a difficult time understanding, because it's kind of like, if I have no archetype, no pre-existing archetype for a female, and I give birth to progeny, what would give me the idea to create a female archetype if it never existed? You
So
see what I'm
so
saying?
so yeah, I see what you're saying. So the
Yeah.
one was the original form of creation. So before everything was created, he is the one who created male and female out of thin air. He didn't just create it from he did because he didn't originate. There was nothing before him. So he decided through his head. So he had a one day conversation with himself because he was alone. I'm going to create male and female. So, and then he just did it out of thin air. So it wasn't originally before him, as I was saying. It came when he created those two archetypes.
I think they hit a story here.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think, in my honest opinion, I think there's a missing story here. Think about it. Like, think about it for yourself. If you, let's say you, how can I put this? Let's say you've never been to Africa and you've never seen a black person, right?
Exactly.
You have no archetype in your head. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then you would now have an archetype when you meet the first one. You see
Hmm.
what I'm saying? So I'm trying to understand, and maybe I'm thinking like a human, but I'm trying to understand, if you didn't have a prototype in your head that existed before, how would you know what a woman would look like? What a There's a story missing here. There's a story missing here. But this is fascinating. Okay, so let's leave the pre-existing ones. The next line. Let's get to the next line. So who's next on the list?
So the primordials, first and
Okay,
second
explain to us,
generation.
who are these primordials?
So
They
they're the ones in
right.
charge and tasking, helping the one and Yash and Chaos with all of creation. So they're the ones tasked with creating and destroying things in the universe. So these beings include Cronus, um, Gaia. They those two are the ones I can actually name because the others I cannot pronounce. So they're the ones I know for the primordials. So those original primordials, the task of creating and destroying, came from the primordials. The second generation primordials are still the primordials, still task of creating. So the gods and goddesses after the primordials, who were tasked with creation, started continuing on their business, started establishing order, justice, government, that sort of thing.
Let's
Those
back
are
up. Sorry, let's back up. So the primordials just gave birth to the known universe. That was their
yes,
job.
that's
Bingo.
it.
That's it. So physical, planets, stars, nebulas.
Yep, yep.
Okay, wonderful. So that was their job. We move on to the next line. The next line.
So the gods and goddesses were tasked with establishing truth, order,
Okay.
knowledge, that sort of thing.
All right. So let's stop. So Yesh and Chaos gave birth to the known universe. Something's
Yes.
missing. So when they gave birth to the known universe, you said gods and goddesses. So the gods and goddesses came from where? Out of Yesh and
The
Chaos.
the primordials. So the children of the
Mm,
primordials became
mm.
the gods and goddesses. So the
So
gods
the
and
children of
goddesses,
the universe.
yes, the universe.
Also, the actual universe itself gave birth.
Yes.
This is fascinating. Whoa.
So so the gods and goddesses were given a duty to start civilization as a whole, so establishing truth, order, justice, darkness, chaos, that sort of thing. So that was their job. That they were tasked to do it, if you guys know what I mean. So if I were everyone in the comments right now, type in order, justice, and darkness and truth. Because they're the ones, the gods and goddesses were originally tasked with that. So you have to thank right now the gods and goddesses for establishing our own systems throughout the universe, because this stuff is not just earthly, it is universal. Then so anyway, the gods and goddesses have the children called the aeons. Now the aeons were tasked with nothing, so they just had fun partying. That was their duty. So they were tasked with procreating. That's it. So the aeons have the deities. The deities were tasked with nothing again. The demigods became the heroes. They were tasked of saving humanity and procreating, and that became the kings. So the kings were given the duty to rule, to protect, and give law and order to the people. That was their mission, tasked by their ancestors. So again, you have the one leaving the universal throne to Yesh. So Yesh gave, I'm going to back up. Yesh gave the primordials the duty to create and destroy. That was their thing. Next became the gods and goddesses. He tasked with them to establishing truth, order, and justice and darkness. Aeons, nothing, just to procreate. Deities, nothing, just to procreate. Demigods to save humanity from dark forces and to procreate. Next became the kings. They were established to rule and govern by giving them law, justice, and order to their people. That's it. And that continued to this day. So the governments today are breaking universal law because of corruption. Yesh does not like corruption. So that's why he tasked the monarchs to give them law, order, and checks and balance structure. And
So the
just
government today are breaking a divine contract.
yes, they're breaking a divine law slash contract, because the republics today are using agendas. So Yesh decided agenda is like a divine crime. So making an agenda for your benefit, not for everyone else's, is a divine crime. Not bringing goodness, honesty, truth, justice, order is a divine law. So
So my question to you is, the rulers of earth today, did they come out of this creation or did they come out of another creation? Because it seems to me that earth's rulers, all of them, are working against the creator.
they're the same part of the creation. They're the
Okay.
same part of the creation, but however, they were given free will. But however, Yesh did not want them to break this divine law. They wanted them to bring knowledge, goodness, peace, and prosperity, not doing it for their own purpose, selfishness, for
Okay.
example.
So my question to you is, this chaos, disorder, injustice, darkness, and lies, which is their mantra. When did that come in? Was it when the demigod started
That
having
was
sex
when
and
the
had
bad
nothing to do?
reptilians came on later on. That was
Okay.
when they started taking over Earth later on.
Okay, so which order, which part of the order, from the one, the primordials, the eons, the demigods, etc., where did the reptilians fit in this? Which part of this? Is it the
So
one?
there's
Did they come
two.
out of the
I'm going to
one?
explain this real quick. So the
Okay.
reptilians are two, good and evil. So the ones that are dragon-like are good. The ones who are not are bad. So the primordials created the reptilians. So they came from the kings came from everyone. So they are all these groups combined as one as the kings because they had divine blood. The reptilians are extraterrestrials. However, the primordials created them. They created two groups, the dragon like reptilians and the ones that look humanoid are bad. So so the bad ones wanted power. So around in the 16th century, the bad ones started to started to marry into these bloodlines, and that became corrupted. The only families that didn't touch, what I'll get into later, is the Stuart bloodline and the families in Scandinavia, China, Japan, and most of the world. The ones that procreated with the bad are the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the 13 families, and the Hanoverians, the German royal families, which include the Hanoverians, the Saxe-Coburgs, and the Windsors. That is it.
What about the papal bloodlines?
The,
Did they?
the papal bloodlines were untouched. However, they did have royal bloodlines. However, they were influenced by the bad ones. They didn't procreate with them, they were just influenced. So they were bribing them with money and all that stuff. So they didn't procreate with the papal bloodlines. All they did was they influenced them heavily.
And they took them over.
They took them over. So
Okay, this
that's
is what they do.
so that's
Sorry, let's backtrack before the 16th century. The Mayans came under their influence. The Incas came under their influence. The Aztecs. So anywhere you see, let's go back to Genesis. Anywhere you see blood sacrifice,
sacrifice.
that's them.
That's them.
And this is why. And let's anywhere you see blood sacrifice and wars, that's them.
That is them.
Because wars are blood sacrifice.
Yes.
Correct? Wonderful. Keep going.
So any
Hold on. Okay, guys, quick question. Is anyone enjoying this? I think this just makes way more sense to me than the nonsense they've been giving us. If you're enjoying this, let me know in the comments. Go ahead.
actually I'm gonna wait for just to see who is typing. So I'm gonna give them 5 minutes and then I'll keep going.
Yeah. Go for it. Go for it. I think this is like okay, very illuminating chat. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. That's funny. I love that. Yeah, that's yeah, this makes a whole lot of sense than the nonsense they gave us because it doesn't I mean, we just go from being created, put in a garden, and then we end up with nonstop wars and bloodshed, and it doesn't make sense. Oh, John, okay, this was a question I kept asking myself. Can you answer this question?
Well, I
Jakarta.
never meant to get this up there, but I have a second paternal father.
Okay.
And that second paternal father is not human, nor is he extraterrestrial. He is a god. He is the Christian God. So besides not saying his name, he is my 69th great grandfather, but he's also my brother. So he's not just my 69th great grandfather, he's my brother. So the knowledge, what I'm telling you now, Jan, is from that God. So God is speaking through me.
So this what he's talking about is what the Africans and what the oh, I'm gonna put that up. What the Africans and what the Native Americans, I don't know about any other cultures. What they talk about is the continuation of the DNA. And this is why wars are so bad because wars break DNA. Okay? So when someone says to you, they're getting messages from their ancestors, this is an African library. This is how African people pass on history. It's through the genetics. So don't doubt it because it's not in a book. Okay. This is how Africans and Native Americans pass on memory. And water is another great one, and the rocks are another great one. There's a great question. Okay, that hold on one second here. He can't mention the name, but there's something else someone else asked. Sorry. Oh, can you make a list? Can you make, that wonderful list that you just typed up?
Oh yeah, yeah. Hold up.
Yeah. Can you actually make a tree
Yeah, I
of
could
it
try
and
to
then
do that. I could try to
explain?
make a pyramid and that sort of thing. I could put a text
Yeah.
box and I'll send it
And
to
then
you.
explain, and then you click on
Yeah,
it, and then it tells you who they are.
yeah. That I can try to do that. I'm not that real skilled with technology
Oh,
because
okay. No problem. No,
but I'll
yeah.
try to do that, Elijah. I'll try to do that.
Yeah, because I think that's a fascinating piece of information to have. I think
Yeah,
that would be. You know what? We'll talk. We'll talk.
yeah. We'll talk.
Yeah, we're gonna do a project together. How's that?
Good idea.
Yeah? Yeah, okay, great, 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 great. Would anyone like King Connor and I to work on that tree? I can help him build it and he can tell me what to put in it. Okay, so Kimberly says I call it downloads because it's in our DNA, and a lot of people's junk DNA are waking up, and a lot of information is coming through. Okay, so don't call people out here crazy because they're getting, revelations that you're not getting. You have to tap in and get your revelation. So King Connor, you continue speaking, and I'm gonna go pull up the mountain. And I believe that Mount Kailash is a message. Ever since last year, well, more than last year, the mountains have been speaking to me big time, and I think they're ready to reveal their mystery. So, King Connor, you continue, and I'm gonna pull up Google Earth. Go for it.
All right, 1 second here. I'll just so anyway, going back to the royal bloodline issue. So all royals were pure before the 16th century, before they were influenced by the Illuminati, aka the Reptilian Order, the bad Reptilian Order. And therefore the Antichrist, remember the one we were talking about, the Jewish God and his son? So the Antichrist, his descendants are the 13 families. So they were reptilian, and also the Antichrist is a reptilian offshoot of Apophis. So Apophis, he is in the god and goddess class. So he's not primordial, who were tasked with creation, but he is a god and goddess. He was a rebel. He was a rebel. He changed his name to Leviathan. So what he did was, so out when he betrayed everyone, the spider was created. So the spider was so out of his web, after he betrayed his relatives, after he betrayed everybody, the spider was born because she was actually in the Garden of Eden, the first wife of Adam, Lilith. So after she betrayed her first husband, she goes to be accepted by her ancestors, the gods. And then when Apophis betrayed, she became the spider. So Lilith became the spider. And that is why she wants to bring the world order, influencing the top elites of the planet so she can get her vengeance against her own family. So, and that's why Metatron, he is actually the twin brother of Yesh. Metatron is the original evil. He resides in the earth. And after Leviathan and Lilith have their game plan, they're going to resurrect Metatron, who will destroy everything, but there is a plan in place. So, what they will do is that what Yesh wants is hoping for everyone to do to wake up and to bring forth the end of this particular demons. I call them demons, but they are actually demonic gods. But anyway, so what's interesting about that is that every culture has a set of 9 gods. Hatch Dragon actually just said it. They are gods in the gods of goddesses class. So Yesh said, okay, I'm going to create 9 gods, each of you. La 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 la. And you are the leader. I'm appointing you as the leader. Ra, you're in charge of the Aeneid. You're in charge of the Ogdode. So Ra, you can create the councils. I'm creating Atum. Oh, Atum is the supreme Egyptian god, the god of the sun, the original god of the sun before he created Ra. Ra is his son. So all the pharaohs are the sons of Ra, sons of the sun god, but they are descendants of Osiris and Isis and Horus too. So they have the power. So the kings were in charge of Egypt. So the temples. So this is another interesting part. The monarchs were also the major high priest. So they were like the head high priest, and also this is where we come into the high priest issue. They're related to the kings and the queens. So I'm gonna make a little branch here from the demigods. The high priests. I'm gonna show it now. Can everyone see it? Kings and the high priests. So they're related. So we call them the Rex Deus families, the God King families. And that includes
That's
the
the
high priest.
Vatican bloodlines,
Yep.
the Jewish Nazi bloodlines, etc., etc. Go for it.
Yes. So, anyways, so that is how the priests were in charge of serving kingship, but they had the bloodline, but they weren't tasked to rule those particular nations. They were like a second offshoot. They were there to serve the royal family and their kings, the monarchs. But the main person that they report to is the monarch, the head high priest. Like today, the monarchs broke away from the pope. They brought back the original form of monarchism, where the monarch is head of that particular religion or church. But that has changed in Christianity. But in other cultures where they still had paganism, they continue that practice because that was their duty. So, and also Hinduism, they divide the classes. I don't remember the classes because I don't speak Hinduism, nor I speak Hindi. So, I know the priests. They're called Brahmins. So they're in charge of ruling the other classes, but they report to the king. So so the priests are like their representatives for church and government. They're like, hey, this is what his majesty or her majesty orders us to do. So that is why kings and priests are so closely related than the normal people, which they will get on to later on to procreate with the nobility. The nobility have nothing. They have no God connections. They're pure human. But where they get the divinity bloodline from is when they procreate with royalty or priesthood. I
Wonderful. Mm.
I rarely seen nobility mixing in with priesthood, but however, the royalty eventually goes into the priesthood, but they marry into nobility more often than the priesthood. Go ahead, Renata. I know you want to show
Wonderful.
this.
No, no, this is something that I want us to get into, right? So this is the last part of the segment, and I'm going to have you on again. Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine.
Wonderful. So let's just take a look at it. How's that?
Good idea.
Okay, wonderful. And I want your opinion on, hold on what you're seeing. Let's see here, entire screen. Oh, let's do window. Let's just do this one. Should I do this one? Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Can you guys see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. Okay. I think this mountain is just so important for 2024. All right. I'm just waiting for you to pull up. Do you see a mountain in front of you?
Yes.
Do you see a face in front of you?
Yep.
Okay. What do you think? Elijah Moore said you got me going in circles. Okay, I don't know what that means. Okay, do you guys see a face in front of you? Press one if you can see a face in front of you. Now, the face in front of you is very interesting. You could tell that there was a really chiseled face in this mountain. It's probably years of erosion that made the face look like this, right? But nonetheless, there's a face in front of you. And the way how the snow covers the face, it sort of kind of looks human, but it's clearly not human. You see the mouth down here? So this could have had some sort of cratering that caused the face to sort of look dilapidated. Okay. Um, why is there a face here that looks sort of kind of human slash non-human, and then the snow on top of it gives it makes it look white? And we know that there is white Dracos, for example,
Hmm.
okay, which is the royal bloodline of the Dracos, right? Okay. Elijah, let's be respectful because we're here to learn, right? I appreciate everyone here. Okay, Cac Life, I'm gonna ask him that question after because I want his opinion on this. Okay, so previously with this mountain, we showed this king right here, who
Yep.
is clearly a Nubian king,
Nubian pharaoh.
right? A Nubian pharaoh. I should say not a king, but a pharaoh, because the pharaohs are higher ranking. Then here we see the Egyptian pharaoh.
Yeah.
Okay. Down here, doesn't he look like an ancient right here? And this is not me. That someone left a message telling me, look here.
Mhm.
Okay. And then I'm like, oh my God, he looks like a Japanese king,
A Japanese emperor.
a Japanese emperor. Thank you so much. Not king, but emperor. Isn't that
Emperor
interesting?
emperors are higher ranking than kings.
Absolutely.
So titles,
Mm.
again, going back to titles, there's a high king, high, that sort of thing. But emperor is the highest royal title that you can ever get.
Yes. Okay, so he looks like a Japanese emperor. Can we say shogun? No?
Shoguns are military dictators, so they're
Mi-
not emperors.
They're not emperors. Okay,
Yeah,
so he looks either Japanese, and I don't want to offend the Chinese, but Asian. He's
yeah.
looking east, interestingly enough. The Sudan is on the east. So
Mhm.
is Egypt, but every time I find an Egyptian pharaoh, he's always facing west for whatever reason. Now look at this. Don't you see? Let me move here to the center. I want you guys to see this because I believe this mountain is sending a message. Do you see an almost Jekyll and Hyde staring at you?
Oh yeah, I
Do
see
you
that.
see it? Let
Yeah,
me let me outline it here.
yeah, I see that. Yeah.
Do you see? So he's mixed. So we're seeing here in Mount Kailash said there is a race that is mixed with black pharaohs, Egyptian pharaohs, and what looks like Caucasian. It's right here. Do you guys see it? Are you seeing it?
Oh, I'm seeing it.
Isn't this spectacular?
It is spectacular because this is like the most ancient temple of them all. Kailash is the most ancient temple in history, and it's the only one still standing because, and also all of its alignments are still there. So No coincidence there. It's the oldest temple, and Kailash is where the holy family of Shiva resides. So Ganesha, Parvati, and Shiva's sons live in Kailash. But it's also interesting enough. There's a cave called the Amarnath. I can't spell it.
Hmm.
So
And there is a temple called there's a city called Amana with a temple, Amana Temple.
mhm,
Isn't that something?
yeah,
Yeah. So what is the mountain telling us? Not only are we seeing an African emperor, a pharaoh. We're seeing a Kemite or Egyptian pharaoh. Egyptian is the Greek word, Kemite is the African word. And from these two bloodlines intermingled, and they're showing you that look, there is a white race that came out of these two bloodlines. It's right here, people. It's right here. So my question to you would be, how would you interpret this? Is it saying kingship or is it saying a race of people? Is this speaking particularly to kingship? Let's look at it from this view. Do you see the Jekyll and Hyde?
yeah.
Okay, go for it.
So what this is saying to me
Mhm,
is that I don't want to get all political with the Nazis. But they believed in the Aryan race. Remember,
mhm,
the Japanese also believed in racial superiority
mhm,
during World War II. So
mhm,
they got that idea with the Nazis. But however, the Aryans are supposed to be like Nordic, like aliens with blue hair, that
mhm,
sort of thing.
mhm.
This does not speak Aryan at all. It speaks on royal intermarriage
Yeah,
between
precisely.
cultures, because this is not an Aryan. This is an absolute evidence of royal intermingling with the Asian royalty, with the
Mhm,
African, the European, and even the Americans, like not US, but America's royal mingling in the marriages between royalty. So this is not an Aryan race, that sort of thing. It is a royal temple showing you what is going on. So it's not Aryan. It's telling you the story of where all the royalty intermingled worldwide with each other.
beautiful. That's what I deduced, that I think this part is the Aryan. Let's look at this. Remember when we started off, hold on. Here, let's put it up here. Zoom in and hold on. Why is this not hey, why is it not all of a sudden it's not straightening up? Why? Okay. Remember when we started off with the pure white race? I
Mhm.
said there's a face here. Could this be the Aryans?
I would like to refer to the Aryans as Pleiadians.
And the Palladians don't look 100% human.
They actually look like us, but they're actually glowing. So
Uh,
they're
mhm,
they look like humans, but they're
mhm,
actually they're more light. They're more like they fit
mhm,
in the category of angels or gods, that sort of thing.
mhm. Grace, to answer your question, Greece is too young for royal bloodlines to come out of there. Uh-uh. Greece is what, 2,500 years? No way. It's way too young for royal bloodlines to come out of there. Now, perhaps maybe European bloodlines, but the rest of the planet, that's too young. That's
Can I
2,500 years.
answer her question real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
So to answer your question, what was her name?
Grace for humanity.
Grace. Okay, so your question, Grace, is very actually a good one, because the royal bloodlines, the divine bloodlines, didn't mingle into Greece until 2500 BC. So yeah, Rianetta is right regarding that. They didn't
Mhm.
mingle in there until 2500 BC. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Rianetta.
no problem. And the bloodlines, the monarchies in Europe are the youngest.
Mhm.
So and he the Grace has a point. It did originate in Greece,
Yeah.
but it's the youngest. You do have a point, but it's not the oldest. Okay, so wonderful. So we see that this mountain has all these different royal bloodlines on it, okay, indicating Sangral, absolutely, the Sangral, which is the chalice, the golden the cup, which
The
is
blood royal, as it
yeah,
is known.
exactly.
So this is where they how they classify in Europe. So if you're of the blood royal of the
Mhm.
particular the king, you are in line to that throne.
Yes.
So if you're first in line, you're second, third, you're of the blood royal.
hmm hmm But the Sangral goes back even further,
Yes, they go back even further.
yeah, which goes back to Isis bloodline,
Yes.
which is where they get the blood of Isis,
Mm.
which when the Romans, post Romans, and then the entrance of Jesus, you get the sangral going back to Jesus. But there was a sangral before Jesus called the blood of Isis. You could go look that up. Now, here we see, and I think you interpreted the mountain right. This is the yoni. Let me turn it this way, and I'm showing this for a reason. This is the yoni, and this is the lingam. And funny enough, the Amarnath temple has a giant lingam,
And Icelingham.
an ice lingam. And look at this. There's this snow up here. Probably that turned to ice. Isn't that something? Right. So, what does this tell us? What does this tell us? And we know that the mountain is telling us there's a peace treaty right here because someone pointed this out. Because I have to say someone because I don't want people. Okay, do you see the circle, Black Sunrise? Okay, give me 1 second. Let me just finish my train of thought and I'm going to get to the circle. So there's a peace treaty here because this is the dove. Okay, hatched dragon. Thank you. I'm going to look at that, right? So there was a peace treaty. Something happened on this planet, and all these royal bloodlines started interbreeding and they formed a peace treaty. And to mark the peace treaty, there's a dove here. What message is this mountain, this sacred mountain? What message are the carvings on this mountain telling us, the human race? Go for it, Connor.
Oh, sorry, 1 second. I was googling the Armarnoth Cape because I want to show this amazing tale.
No problem.
What was the question again?
What message is this mountain of pharaohs in Africa, of Asian emperors, of some sort of white race here, of the intermingling of these white royals with black African royal blood? What is the mountain telling us? And then the dove looking at all the kings. We know it's telling us that there was an intermingling, but the dove is telling us something. What is the message for the human race from Mount Kailash? Because I think this message, this mountain has a message to the earth. What do you think the message is?
So they're telling us that before time that there was a battle between all the royal bloodlines on the planet.
Mhm.
So the dove is symbolizing that they actually made a peace treaty by intermingling with one another, so they can
Mm,
preserve that peace treaty. That's what it means.
wonderful. And what message is the mountain? What is the message from the mountain to the human race?
To not go to not to cause destruction to the human race by nuclear war. It's saying don't ever fight. You should get along with one another. You shouldn't fight over ridiculous nonsense like what we see here. You should come together as the human race, regardless what race, religion, ethnicity. We're all human. We should all unite and stop bitching with one another.
Sounds
That's what it's saying.
okay. Now I have this one to show you. You're gonna find this one fascinating. This is close to Mount Kailash. Do you see a face staring at you? Let me outline it. I'm doing this one on purpose because this one was a shocker. Because I know it's connected. Do you see the face? It's a profile. Does everyone see this face?
Oh yeah, I see it. It has a elongated skull.
Yes. And the elongated skull is a sign of what?
It's actually a sign of intermingling with extraterrestrials. Either they're completely alien or they're mixed.
Oh, beautiful. Now look at this. So you see the face, right? Now watch this. Watch this. Watch this. Why does the face now turn to... Do you see this? Let me outline it.
Oh, no kidding. I see it.
You see it? Isn't that a big cat?
Yes.
Whoa! What is this mountain saying? Why does the cat have a human head?
Guys, remember when the gods were experimenting on animals? So like hybrid beings? This is what they're telling you.
Mhm,
Like for I'm gonna take one particular hybrid for example, the three-headed dog Cerberus, who guarded the gates of the underworld in Greek
mhm,
mythology.
mhm, mhm.
That's what they're talking about. They're talking about when the gods do genetic experiments or extraterrestrials do genetic experiments on Earth animals. You know what's interesting to me is that there's a particular group of gray aliens that really don't like humans,
The troll.
and yeah, and they're obsessed that we have a soul and it's so mysterious to them. So they abduct us to find out about our soul, and they kept the souls in containers.
Powerful. Powerful. So in this region, isn't there a tiger in this region? A big cat in this region?
Oh,
Aren't there
they
big cats?
oh no kidding. I see it. It looks like a tiger to me. A
It looks,
tiger.
yeah. Do you see a tiger staring back at you?
I do.
Ah, and isn't there a tiger in this region? The Bengal tiger
Oh yes, the
going south.
Bengal tigers.
Ah, and there is a fascination and a history with these tigers in that region and this bloodline.
Very interesting.
Hey, Carrie, welcome. So, what is this mountain saying? And it's a mixture of a tiger, big cat, and a human. But here's what I found interesting in this mountain. We're going to go back to bloodlines because all of this is related. Because a lot of the kings, what do the kings wear over their shoulder? They wear the leopard or the tiger or the panther, or they're associated with some cat. So this is a symbol of royalty, royal blood. Did everyone catch that? Did you catch that? Connor, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just wait. I want everyone to start, figuring this out on their own besides me saying it, because every time when a king wears the particular cat
Hmm.
or whatever, that's associated with kingship. So I want everyone to start, have their own mind, start thinking.
Yeah. And also, what do they say about how many lives cats have?
9.
Ah, now do you understand why kings wear cats over their shoulder as a part of their royal dress? So
Mm-hmm.
this mountain is not just a regular mountain because the head of the mountain is a face.
Mm-hmm.
And then why is this mountain a cat with a human head? Where do we know there's a giant cat with a human head?
Mm-hmm.
There's a place on the planet in North Africa where there's a giant cat, the Sphinx. And the Sphinx is closely related to royalty. So Wanderer said, is cat related to chaos? Cats are guardians, from what I know. Cats are guardians of the gates And cats are protectors of the pharaohs, they're protectors of the kings. And it
Yep.
also has a spiritual meaning that the kings will live on because cats have 9 lives,
Yes.
right? Okay,
Yeah.
Cat Life had a question. Okay, so we're done with that. I thought that was really fascinating. Cat Life had a question, Young King. What did I do? Let me stop presenting. Okay. Cat Life said, Young King, King Connor, if you were in active power, what's the one thing you would change with no question?
What I would do,
Mhm.
okay, there's a list that I wanna do. I wanna get rid of the Rothschild banks. I wanna get rid of them all. This is what I would do. I will bring back the gold standard. Let me tell you this why. Because if when your fiat money is worth nothing, so you have paper money, it's worth nothing. Here, hold on. Okay, I don't have my wallet on me, but if you have paper money, it's worth nothing. It's not backed in anything. But in gold standard, you have stuff to back it up, money to back it up. So this is what they do. So the Illuminati, with through the banks, gives you a certificate. So you're all a millionaire. But what they would do is that so when you go to the bank and they say, "Oh, I need $100,000 loan for just to pay off my mortgage and stuff like that." And so okay, we're going to charge you 18.7% interest or whatever percentage that they give you. So they start taking money from your certificate into their banks to pay to fund your loan, because if you go to a bank, they won't have that money, so they will charge you interest. That's what I want to get rid of. I want to cancel everyone's debts. I want get rid of taxes because that's a thing of controlling the people. I want to get rid of taxes. And then what I want to do is that I want to secure borders. I don't want any criminals coming into any country hurting people, terrorists killing innocent lives. I don't want to start any wars. I will make peace with every country. That's what I want to do if I was actually in power. But here's the thing, I like living amongst the people. I don't want to go into power. I don't want that. If I'm needed to, if I see a country in a terrible state, then I will run for an office. That's what I would do. I don't want to be like, oh, I don't just to go into a period where, oh, like I have a certain amount of things to do, but then you realize that all the work that you've been doing is undone by future leaders. So that's why I'm gonna stay away from politics right now until I am like needed. So like we're urgently needed. Right now it's an urgent matter because I even though I'm not 35 to run for US Rep or Senate, but what I want to do is that I want to serve the people. Originally it was supposed to be for kingship, not for their agenda. That's what I wanted to answer her question.
Okay, here's my thing. Um, how do I put this? There's no such thing as a poor country.
There's no such thing.
None. For example, Venezuela is the richest country in the Americas. Okay,
Mhm.
because Venezuela has the most gold and they have the most oil. Okay. Um, however, and don't answer this question, but I'm just showing you context, right? Venezuela is the richest country in the Americas because they have gold. I mean, they have all the mineral wealth, all. But the current power structure invade, destabilize, overthrow. And they've done this throughout Latin America, I mean, for 400 years. Okay. And whenever there is a ruler in Latin America that rises up, that wants to lift the standard of living, they get assassinated, taken out, and then the people pushed up north, and then the wealthy lands are seized. That's the Americas. The Middle East is undergoing colonization. Okay, we have to be fair in how we deal with this planet and how we look at this planet. And I'm just making a point here. The Middle East is being colonized. They're rich in oil. And God knows there's probably minerals under there because it's a desert we're dealing. And we know there's history under there, lots of history.
Mhm.
They're being colonized. The people are being labeled terrorists, which they're not terrorists. Okay, because I believe all terrorists come from the same system that gives you loans. That's just my opinion. And the people are being bombed, blown up, and their resources stolen, and then they pushed out. Let's get to Africa, the wealthiest continent on the planet. And for 400 years, and still to this day, and this is something people don't understand, the Africans do not make their own rules. Africa is still colonized. And if you, and they're being colonized, their resources are being stolen, and they're being pushed out, right? So when we look at things like open borders, don't just look at them in your country. You have to go and look at what's happening in their country that would make these people run to yours. And it doesn't stop at their corrupt governments, because their corrupt governments answer to an older government. What would you do if you had the power? What would you do to ensure that the people of Africa have the right to their land and their resources? The people of the Middle East have the right to their land and their resources. The people of the Americas have the right to their land and their act. That's exactly what it's called, the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. That's in West Africa. You're absolutely right. 27 countries is under that slave agreement. So, what would you do to ensure the people of the Americas have rights to their land and can enjoy and benefit the resources? How would you answer that question?
It's a lot to think about, to be honest.
Hmm.
I am a tremendous supporter of private property.
Hmm.
I live with my parents, and I always make sure that their property
Hmm.
does not ever get stolen
Hmm.
by governments or anything like that. But to answer that question, though, is that what we should do is try to get rid of that pact, because no one deserves to be enslaved. No one deserves to be beaten. No one deserves to be, tortured or anything like that. They deserve to have free will and decide for themselves, if because they should have the right to their land. They should have that right to their land not to being stolen. They shouldn't It should not be stolen. It should be going to the natives there, not to any other power besides their own. That's my opinion. But I want
So,
to.
okay, really quickly, we're going to get to
Yep.
that. Really quickly, you would ensure, using your power, that the Africans would pursue their divine right to
Yes.
own their land, own their resources, remain on their land, and become wealthy off of their land. Correct?
Yes. Every human being has a right to depose their government. I'm not starting revolution,
Understood. Understood.
but they have a right to decide their government.
Mm,
If that government is failing them, they have the
mm,
right to uprise
mm,
and assemble.
mm,
They don't deserve to have that right taken away
mm,
when a communist or a totalitarian government
mm,
wants their blood to
mm.
work for them. That's where I get pissed, is because it should be by the people, government for the people, for any country,
Mhm, mhm, mhm,
not for the wealthy, but for the minority. The whole
mhm,
thing of a republic is
mhm,
rule of the minority, the
mhm.
people.
The people. Mhm,
Democracies are for the majority, rule of the majority. So if you
mhm,
were a democracy, you would vote for a elitist majority.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
Not
Understood. Or elitist minority.
republic.
Democracy.
Democracy
Mhm,
depends. So what? So will be the majority,
mhm,
rule of the majority. Republic will be the rule of the minority.
Okay, okay, I got the correct legal meaning of the word because I was thinking the lay meaning of the word.
Yeah.
Minority meaning, okay, minority meaning lesser, less group of people. No, it means without royal blood.
Yes, exactly.
Minority. That's
There's
yeah.
a thing called a crowned
Yeah.
republic. So
Mm,
you have the monarch as head of state
mhm,
with a
mhm, mhm,
constitutional system,
mhm.
and then you have the people who elect those people in power, not
Right,
the
I get
monarch.
it. Mm,
The monarch makes sure that that contract is not broken between king and people.
I understand because I was thinking the lay, because you know how they twist the meanings of words. So the
Yeah.
lay meaning of the word, lay meaning you and me, meaning of minorities, minor meaning less, a smaller group. But that's
Yes.
not what it means. It means lesser in power.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So let's add this and we're gonna wrap it up.
Yes.
Okay,
So
Connor.
this
So
is
what's on
the
the screen?
Amarnath Cape, the one I was talking to you about earlier about Mount Kailash. So this is where Shiva's temple is. So this is the entrance to Shiva's temple. So I'm gonna show you this site is the most sacred place to all the Hindu faith. People die to because of high audition sickness. There's a simple fall off the cliff, but people still go there because it's the most of holiest shrine. But anyway, the story goes is that this is where the god Shiva revealed the secrets of immortality and the creation of the universe to his wife Parvati. To honor Shiva, they go into a sacred relic inside, an ice lingam, which is the source of his generative power. So this is what it looks like, the ice lingam. And therefore, millions of people still go there today, even though they will die, just to pay their respects to that shrine. What's amazing though is that I've been receiving pictures of an ice lingam because a lingam has another meaning to it. So lingams to honor Shiva, Shiva's the destroyer. So, but the lingams are also a symbol of nuclear power plants, besides a sexual organ. Uh, so, what the ice lingam represents is that the true of secret immortality is where conception starts. This is what Shiva's telling you. And therefore, what's amazing about this site is that right here, this is where Shiva sat, and here is his the I forgot the Hindu word for it, but his trident, the source of his destructive power. This is where Parvati sat. This is where Shiva sat right here. So Shiva was telling her the secrets of the universe and the true secret of immortality. So because of that particular event, this is where the most sacred site in all of Hinduism started. I'm done sharing for that.
I think that's really fascinating. I want to ask, I have so many more questions, but I'm just going to ask you two more questions and we're going to wrap it up. Is that
Oh,
okay?
that's fine.
Okay, wonderful. So Jakarta asks, what can we as a collective do to help out regarding the urgency of humanity? Because we know the agenda and how much they love us because they just love us so much. Oh, stop loving us. So the rulers of earth, they just in love with us so much. They just love us to the point we disappear. So what can we do to help humanity?
Let me give you my honest, most respectful opinion is to try to educate others of what is going on because that's the only way we can win. Also, technology always fails in elections, but when you have a majority that is educated instead of brainwashed, you will succeed. So that's my answer. That's the most honest way I can put it is to make sure to educate others, lift them from the darkness to the light instead of, being in a particular space because that's where we can help succeed. you uniting more people instead of having, a broken apart society. That's my most honest answer I can give.
I think that's a wonderful, wonderful place to start. I think instead of education, I think it's re-educated,
Re-education, yeah.
because the education they gave us made us stupid. Here's how I would answer that question. This is me, right? I think it starts with education, right? But here's what we did wrong. The ancients believed that in order for a society, in order for a community to progress, right, they should not be neither left hemispheric or right hemispheric, meaning they shouldn't lean too much on one hemisphere of the brain. The more people pursue education alone, they lean left. And what ends up happening? We end up in degeneracy. We end up with things like master race, chosen races, these types of ideologies, right? When you lean too far left on the brain, right? When you go too far right on the brain, okay, we end up with things like theocracies that stifles
Hmm.
knowledge, right? So one of the things we have to do is, for humanity to progress, we must instill progressing bihemispherically. Okay, so 50% spiritual with strong undertones of morality, and then 50% logic, reason, rationality, building, development,
Hmm.
right?
It's like I call it the Goldilocks paradox of politics, is that you have to be like, you can't be too far left, you can't be too far right. You have to be somewhere in between, just right. Not just, on a particular side. I think everyone should be on that neutral side instead of,
And we have to elevate, forget politics.
yep,
Politics does nothing but get us into trouble.
yep,
Politics, no, politics is
balance.
not the answer. What's the answer is, in my opinion, education. That's you, and you're absolutely right. Nothing gets done without an educated public. But how do we educate them? It has to be bihemispherically,
Yeah.
okay? And when we say bihemispherically, when we're developing, we cannot deny nature.
Yes.
So we have to stay as close to it as possible. All right. What are your final thoughts, and how can people uh, come to learn about your knowledge? What are your channels? Do you have a YouTube channel? How can people get to learn about who King Conor is and study histories of bloodlines? And perhaps there's people who want to know their bloodline. Can you help them with that? Go for it.
So I have, it's one of my channels is called King Conor the First of the United Kingdom. It is connected with my ordinary account called Conor Allen. You just Google up King Conor the First of the United Kingdom. You will find all kinds of history, my personal bloodline videos, and all that. If Rianetta wants me have me on again to talk about my personal bloodlines, then we can. And and then therefore I teach history. I'm gonna have an episode on Mount Kailash on the Sunday, but on this Friday I actually have an interview with Typical Skeptic podcast regarding my lineage. And if Rianette, if you want to join, that's fine as my guest, then that'll be fine. But anyway, he has that on his calendar. I still have to reach out to him just to let him know. And therefore we can go forward with that. But anyway, I have a Facebook group. It's called the Sacred and Royal Bloodline of Jesus Christ, and we talk about history in there, and we talk about the bloodlines in general. What I can do to teach you to research your bloodline is to don't waste it on ancestry.com, because they harvest your DNA through that. Bill Gates, you can thank Bill Gates for that. But the site, it is very, very expensive. I used Family Tree DNA, and then I used My Heritage. So those are the sites I use because they're a lot cheaper than Ancestry. That's what I can tell you. But anyway, I also have a Instagram account. I will tell you the thing. It's called it's O one, like lower like that lower slash right there, not the upper slash, so the lower slash Conor Stewart. And I just post like lineage stuff, family photos for Christmas events, and it's actually STUR, and I'm sorry, STUART. That's what it is. That's the Instagram. And then if you want to contact me through Messenger, that's fine. I am not giving you my personal cell phone. That's reserved for family and friends only. But the main source of contact that I can personally give you is my Gmail. That's it. So if you want to reach out to Gmail, we can do that. And if Rianetta wants to do future podcasts, like I know for a fact probably going to do my personal lineage lines later on. We're going to do more history videos later on. I am assuming so. You can know more about me later on. So that's it.
All right, Connor, that was amazing. Really, 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 that was really good. Guys, thank you so much. Um, thank you for being here. And the questions were really good. We're gonna have Connor back on with his personal line. I figured, you guys could go to his page and
Like a
listen to his videos.
preview to get started for like a
Yeah,
future event. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Go to his page and like watch the videos about how he traces these bloodlines and that kind of stuff. But yeah, we're gonna have you on. We're gonna have you on again with the bloodlines. How's that?
perfect.
Sounds good?
Sounds
Okay,
good.
everyone, thank you. Have a wonderful evening. And I'll talk to you later and reach out to Connor.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye. See you guys.
Okay.